So, here's a wild thought. What if the most powerful person on the planet isn't really in control? It's a pretty uncomfortable question, but it's the one we're diving into today. We're going to explore this idea that the president is really more of a manager than a commander-in-chief, hemmed in by forces that are way beyond their control. It sounds a little crazy, doesn't it? I mean, we see the president on the news, signing executive orders, giving these big speeches. They look like they're in total command. But what if that's just the surface? What if the real power isn't in the Oval Office at all, and the president is just the public face of a much, much larger machine? This really gets to the heart of the argument. You've got the image we all see, the leader who dominates the headlines. But then there's the reality. A president who walks into the job on day one only to find a mountain of inherited debt, a whole web of systemic pressures, and really powerful institutions that have their own agendas. Thank you very much. You know, a good way to think about it is like this. Imagine you just got the top job, CEO of the biggest company in the world. You walk in feeling great, and your new team says, "Welcome aboard. Oh, by the way, we're trillions of dollars in debt, the whole operation is creaking at the seams, and our most important clients are making demands we absolutely cannot refuse." So how much real power do you have there? Are you actually setting a new course, or are you just desperately trying to keep the ship from sinking? So, what exactly are these invisible chains holding the presidency back? Well, the source material we're looking at points to 5 major hidden forces. And the crazy thing is, they're all operating right out in the open, hiding in plain sight. Let's pull back the curtain and take a look at each one. So here's our roadmap. We're going to break down the 5 big ones. The military-industrial complex, this idea of agenda control, which is basically who decides what the president even talks about. The power of what's called the motivated minority, the massive influence of the financial markets, and, well, the big one, the crushing weight of the national debt. All right, first up, the military-industrial complex. Now, this isn't some fringe conspiracy theory. The term was actually coined by President Eisenhower, a 5-star general. He warned about this permanent, powerful network of defense contractors and military agencies that, according to our source, has one single overriding need. It always needs an enemy to justify its massive budget and its very existence. And this creates what's known in game theory as the principal agent problem. It sounds complicated, but it's simple. The president is the principal. They're supposed to make the final call, but they have to rely on information from their agents, in this case, the Pentagon, the CIA, you name it. The problem is, these agents have their own goals, right? They want bigger budgets, more influence, so they can frame the information they give the president in a way that makes their preferred option, which is often conflict, seem like the only sane choice on the table. The second force is a bit more subtle, but man, is it powerful. It's called agenda control. Put simply, if you can control what gets discussed in the first place, you can basically control the outcome before the debate even starts. As our source says, whoever controls the flow of information controls the outcome. The president isn't sitting there with a direct, unfiltered feed of what's happening in the world. Nope. They're getting briefings, summaries, and talking points. And the people who write those documents, who decide what to include and what to leave out, they have an incredible amount of power to shape the president's entire perception of reality. Okay, next up is something called the motivated minority problem. This is a really fascinating concept from game theory. It explains how a small but intensely focused group can pretty much always get what it wants from a much larger but more distracted majority. Let's use the US and Israel relationship as an example here. For Israel, its relationship with the United States is an existential life or death issue. Every bit of their focus is on it. The United States, on the other hand, is trying to juggle thousands of different priorities, both at home and abroad. So that difference in focus, that gap in motivation, gives the smaller, laser-focused party a huge advantage in shaping policy to its benefit. Force number 4, the financial markets. You know, we usually think of Wall Street as just reacting to decisions that are made in Washington, but our source suggests that that whole relationship has flipped on its head. Now, the markets don't just react, they anticipate, and they will punish any politician who steps out of line, basically setting the boundaries for what's even politically possible. And get this, a single trade worth $2 billion was placed just 16 minutes before a major government announcement about Iran. Come on, that is not a lucky guess. That is somebody with inside information, someone wielding a level of power that operates completely outside of any democratic process.
And that brings us to the fifth, and you could argue the most powerful force of all. It's the one that underpins everything else. This one isn't about politics or persuasion. It's just about cold, hard, inescapable math: the national debt.
At over $36 trillion. I mean, it's a number so big it's hard to even wrap your head around. To keep the lights on and pay the interest on that debt, the US government has to constantly borrow more money. And to do that, it needs to keep interest rates low. This one simple fact, the need for cheap money, becomes the absolute bottom line that dictates foreign policy, military spending, pretty much everything.
So, what happens when you throw all these forces into a pot and stir? You get what our source calls the trap matrix. It's a political landscape where basically every door the president tries to open just leads to another problem. There are no good choices left.
Let's play it out with a foreign policy crisis. Option 1. The president escalates. Well, now they risk getting stuck in a long, expensive, bloody war. Option 2. They try to de-escalate. Bam, they're called weak by their political rivals and the markets punish them for it. Option 3. They do nothing. Well, now American influence slowly declines, and you better believe they get blamed for that too. It's a classic lose-lose-lose scenario. That's not leadership, it's just damage control.
And this is where the whole thing gets really, really sobering. Because this isn't some new, unique problem. Our source argues that what we're seeing is a pattern that has played out again and again throughout history. It's a classic symptom of an empire in the later stages of its life. Just look at the parallels with the late Roman Empire. Crushing unsustainable debt? Check. A military that's overextended, fighting too many battles on too many fronts? Check. And political paralysis and gridlock back home? Big check. I mean, these are the exact same structural cracks that appeared in Rome right before it crumbled. So, what if we stop focusing so much on the individual in the White House and start looking at the system they're stuck inside? If you do that, the future starts to look a lot less random and a lot more predictable. This machine, it has a logic all its own. So what does this logic tell us about the future? According to our source, we can probably expect three things. 1. Conflicts won't end because of wise diplomacy. They'll end when they simply become too expensive to keep fighting. 2. Any major new deals or policy shifts won't be driven by politicians. They'll be forced on them by the financial markets. And 3, and this is maybe the most important takeaway, the machine itself will outlast any single person who sits in the Oval Office. And that leads us to probably the most radical and disturbing idea in this entire analysis. What if we've been looking at all of this completely backward? What if the actual goal of the system isn't to win wars, but, as the source puts it, simply to sustain them? So I'll just leave you with this final thought to chew on. We look out at the world and we see what looks like chaos, endless conflict, political gridlock, and we think, man, the system is broken. But what if it's not broken at all? What if the system is actually working perfectly, doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is to perpetuate a state of crisis that benefits the powerful institutions at its very core? It's a heavy thought, for sure, but definitely one worth considering.